Welcome to CUTV News Radio, where our hosts Doug Llewellyn and Jim Masters talk to today's top thinkers from all around the world to bring you information, inspiration, and thought-provoking ideas that you can put to use in your personal or professional life right now. Covering a broad range of topics, we dig deep to discover what makes today's top thinkers tick. CUTV News Radio. It's the show where ideas matter. And now, here's today's host, Jim Masters.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome live worldwide to CUTV News Radio. This is your host, Jim Masters. Pleasure to have you with us. It's 1 p.m. Eastern, right, and 10 a.m. Pacific. And it is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017, at the time of the broadcast. As we mention all the time, we do archive all of our shows, so that means you can hear the show again on our websites as well as our guests' websites and also on other multimedia platforms such as iTunes and on Stitcher. Continuing our very thought-provoking and stimulating conversation with somebody very special who's been chatting with us about some amazing things here on CUTV News Radio. Her name is Marilyn Redmond. She is the founder of Angelica's Gifts, specializing in holistic health, healing, and complementary medicine, including therapeutic hypnotherapy and past life therapy. Marilyn works with her clients on empowerment, self-esteem, relationships, overcoming addictions, and other medical problems. Her holistic health counseling combines over 50 years of education with more than 30 years of extensive counseling, speaking, research, and personal experience. She's a professional counselor, speaker, teacher, author, consultant, spiritual minister, and artist. In fact, there's not an avenue of holistic healing that Marilyn has not explored on her journey to helping as many people as she can. She's also the author of 9 books, including Road to Success, Paradigm Busters, Reveal the Real You, Roses Have Thorns, and The Real Meaning of 2012, a new paradigm for bringing heaven to earth. And her most recent book, which we're going to get an exclusive sneak preview of today, is entitled Finding Reality Beyond Fear. And the book is going to be published this Christmas. So stay tuned. We'll tell you how you'll be able to access any and all of the books from Marilyn's incredible reading collection. Now, just a little preview in advance of Marilyn speaking with us about the book. Finding Reality Beyond Fear is about moving into a higher consciousness with the tools and experiences to grow beyond a fear-based life. We can release the fear for a love-based life of well-being, according to Marilyn. And it's her mission to help others to move beyond present life of desperation into heaven on earth. She has the ability and training to help others overcome their difficulties and move beyond. All of her spiritual counseling, teaching, writing, speaking, and mediumship is about sharing answers that work. It's our pleasure to welcome back for part 2 of our series with Marilyn Redmond from Angelica's Gifts. Great to have Marilyn back with us here on the show to delve in a little deeper today. Marilyn, thank you so very much for joining us on CUTV News Radio today. Pleasure to have you with us. Welcome back.
Well, I'm so glad to be back, and thank you for having me, and it's just a real joy.
Absolutely, for us as well, because we're learning so much as you share all of the material with us on these series of shows on CUTV News Radio. I wanted to talk a little bit about your mission and the calling. We delved into that a little bit last week about, when you realize that this is the kind of work you want to do and what you see as your mission and how you're actually helping people so extensively and so beautifully, but in a long-lasting way as well. Tell us a bit more about that, Marilyn, if you can.
Well, I really was unaware in life of why my life was so devastating. I had a lot of calamity, a lot of problems, devastating from my growing up in a domestic violent, dysfunctional family with mental illness and addictions and marrying the same thing, and my life was going down the tubes. I got so desperate at one point that because my husband was trying to kill me that I tried suicide. And I had a near-death experience where angels came. And this is when I'd experienced them before, but this time they showed themselves visually to me, and had me go back home. Of course, I'm still here today. Told me what to do, and I just, ever since then, it took a few years to kind of recuperate from that particular trauma I was going through at the time. But they started appearing to me. My angels started appearing to me, and I had, by that time I'd moved into spiritual programs in counseling, trying to figure out what was going on. And I started in my meditations. My spiritual groups say you're supposed to meditate every day, and I didn't know about that. And so I started meditating every day, and my angels started showing up and giving me information. And the more I meditated, I literally moved into higher consciousness of being psychic. Most people would call it the fourth dimension, where I could communicate with the other side, people that had passed over, and I could I could communicate back and forth at that level. The more I meditated, I went into even a higher consciousness of fifth dimension and above, and I started connecting. I discovered Archangel Michael was one of my angels, and also Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Raphael. I've got a lot of masters that have been teaching me, such as Katumi, Saint Germain, or a couple people would probably recognize their names. And I have guides that some of them are my family members on the other side, help me get to the right places at the right time to make the right connections. And so I started in my meditations getting all these answers of what to do in my life and what worked and how to put it together. Fortunately, I've had a lot of avenues and support to be able to do that. So with the teaching and the writing and the counseling, and I'm an international columnist for the Sussex newspaper, and so getting the message out that we don't have to stay in fear. And that was basically, everybody has been a fear-based person, and anything that's negative energy is from fear. So we really have two emotions, fear and love. And we're on planet Earth, third dimension, which is a dark planet, a fearful planet. It's actually perpetuated by the news media, the violent movies, the game videos that are, some of them are pretty violent, the various parts of our lives, the nightly news. And so the fear is being perpetuated, and we're still being kept in this darkness. And I'm here to say we can move into the light, and we can put holes in that dark blanket of fear and move out of that, and the more light you put in, the less darkness there is. When you turn on the light, the darkness disappears. So we're actually moving off of a emotional and physical mindset of darkness and allowing the light of love to come into our lives and replace it, which is the planet is moving into unconditional love, and that's what we are here to learn to do. So I'm helping here for people to assist them in doing that.
That is wonderful. You know, you mentioned there's a different perspective, I guess, that you receive going through all the things that you've gone through, and a different, you got to learn to be flexible, adaptable, we all do, and there's disappointment that comes with life too. How do you think, Marilyn, your perspective and your maybe want for expectation may have changed through everything that you've experienced personally?
Well, what I've come to understand is my perceptions were from a child who was fear-based and afraid that I would be beaten up like my mother when she was a little child. And of course, I ended up in domestic violence where there was physical attack and so forth. So when you stay in that fear and darkness, your perception is very immature. And this whole, what I'm here to say is we get to mature and grow up and grow beyond that spot. And when you start opening up into you mentioned an open mind and being honest and willing to move out of that old space and open your mind into the love of the universe, which is what we're created in the image of God, is the love of the universe. And when you're open-minded to allowing that to come in, your perception changes. You've moved into a higher consciousness. It's like going up the ladder of thinking. The Bible calls it Jacob's ladder. We're going up the ladder step by step. Each time we get a new awareness, we go through the experience that we need to face and come out on the other side, we get a little more wisdom in our life. And I had no wisdom in my life. In fact, as a little kid, I prayed for wisdom and started an L collection. So I have an L collection because I wanted to be wise. And so as we gain that wisdom, our perception grows bigger and larger until we see everything as love. It always has been, and the fear just covered it up. So I move into maturity, and then in my case, I've pretty much given up expectations because that stops my serenity and peace inside. People are going to be the way they are. They're going to act the way they are for what they need to do for their lives. And I've had to learn live and let live. I'm in charge of my life. I'm responsible for my happiness, and how they handle things is their problem. I can help them. I can be supportive, but they are the only ones that can actually do the change or how they want to handle their life. I can just be there with them, and I don't have to do it for them, but I can hopefully provide support to them. And when you love yourself, you can do that for others. And when you're in fear, you're in survival, and there's no way to contribute to others. You're just barely making it yourself, usually. But when you have your needs met, which in spirit my needs are met today, I then have the ability to contribute to others from my cup runneth over today. Before it was empty. So as we fill our lives with love, we have enough to share with everyone. And our perception is that we're all from the same spirit of love, and that we work together in unity and harmony, which makes a much more pleasant life, and that's the heaven on earth. We've released all the negativity, energy, and see it through the eyes of love.
We've talked about the fact that, Marilyn, that you're basically fearless, which is a wonderful thing. What would you say is driving the desire to pursue so many healing modalities, so many different avenues of reaching out to people, and to continue to educate yourself further and further in the entire process?
Well, that's an interesting question. That's in the prologue of my book, Paradigm Busters, is that many people are more and more open to the idea of reincarnation today. And as I was on the other side, I looked down to earth and I saw all the people hurting and the pain and the problems that they were going through, and I said, I know the answers. I can go down and help them. And it's like God is, of course, energy, but it felt like he put his arm on my arm and pulled it behind me, and like you wanted me to say uncle. That's just, in the old days, people would do that, put your arm behind you and say uncle. And if you want to go down there, you're going to have to go through all those experiences and show them they can go through it like you have done. So I picked a pretty hard life, I guess you'd say. Not intentionally, I wanted it to be as tough as it got. I almost died 12 times at this point. But when you go through the experience, you come out on the other end, you know what the answers are. And so I have gone through a multitude of addictions, mental illness, all kinds of diseases and problems with relationships. Obviously, if you're in domestic violence, I understand the solution to those things today because I've been through and healed them. Love never fails, it turns out. Doesn't matter what the problem is. If you apply love, you're going to have unconditional love, and when you're in that state, there are no problems. There's no lack of health. You're at perfect health. Everybody's in harmony, so there's no relationship problems. What you've really done is release the ego, which is my book, The Real Meaning of 2012, is to move out of your ego, because that's the answer in the long run. Is ego is edging God out. If you edge love out of your life, it's going to be disastrous. But I'm learning to merge God in, more of my love and love and love to others around me, no matter what they do. Mother Teresa, this is in my book coming out, Finding Reality Beyond Fear. I have quoted Mother Teresa, and it's beautiful about what you can do if somebody is hurting you or harmful or says something unkind or isn't honest or whatever. You just always send love. And when you do that, you move out of the past harms and problems, and instead of digging the hole deeper, you actually get to move up that ladder of consciousness and see that we're all one. And why would you hurt somebody? You're really hurting yourself. Why would you do something unkind to somebody? Because if we're the same spirit, that you're part of that, but you don't want to be unkind to yourself. So, love and tolerance, we learn for others because we're sharing that. And that comes back, and we come back into unity and cooperative ways of handling our lives. And so instead of hurting others, we're helping ourselves, but we're all coming together and increasing and improving our own lives. And so there's no reason to hurt somebody else because that's what comes back if you do it. So send out love and let the love come back.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's what you want to do. What would you say life looks like on the other side of all this internal turmoil that you've discussed with us here on the show, Marilyn? Hopefulness,
well, when
positive?
you move into that unconditional love of fifth dimension, which is what Jesus came to show us how to do that, then my next book will be about that because people have misunderstood the Bible. When you look back and you see how in my case, how I used to handle my life, I can see how uninformed I was. Fear is the lack of information. And so when you're coming from a lack of information, you're kind of in a dark room with blinders and with earplugs, and you don't know where you're going, and it's just kind of a big problem. And you can look and see how when people are hurting today, you can look at them from the side that I've come through that, and I can send compassion to them and forgiveness, and I'd be grateful that I understand how to help that person. And I can forgive those people that are hurting or have hurt me because I know they're in pain and they're calling out for help. And my solution today is to provide the love and support that they didn't get maybe when they were younger. Most of us have difficulties because we didn't grow up in a nurturing family. Many of us didn't, and if the family didn't have any stability, I know my mother's childhood was constant move. She went to 28 schools. So that's called abandonment. So when you have an unstable childhood and you aren't nurtured, these things happen, but when you can see it from a distance and see these people are in pain, you can provide love and support and guidance to help them, and so they don't have to stay there. So you just have a different perception. You have a higher perception.
Now, when you reach that other side, is it hard to see people still struggling?
When you come into compassion, you don't see it you don't want to make them hurt anymore. You want to say, what can I do to contribute? What can I do to help you? People know what their answers are. It's inside. That's why we meditate, because our direction and guidance comes from within us. It's not from people outside of us. It's not from organizations that tell you I have the answers to save you. We save ourselves by finding the answers inside, that we're love and we're worthy and that we have value and we're good enough. And when we find that great reality deep inside of us, then we can move into that loving God environment that has always been there. And so it's a matter of seeing people in pain, and you want to help. It's not that it's a bad situation. It's how can you help them enjoy their life instead of stay where they are.
Absolutely. How to make their lives better, absolutely. I would imagine coming into play with a lot of this, Marilyn, is the word forgiveness. And sometimes that is easier to say than to actually do. But it does sound like forgiveness is a big component of all of this, too. Tell us a little bit about how forgiveness comes into play here and how we go about doing that and really living it.
Well, that's a really good question. I was told by my teachers, spiritual teachers, when I'm from meditation, that forgiveness really means to give up the past. For a new day. So you give up the past for a new day. So when you're giving up the past, what you're doing is you're no longer living in the past history of your hurts and harms. You give up that emotional string that connects you to keep yourself in pain about it. So, I mean, I've been through rape. So what do? You forgive the person because you don't want to have it in your life the rest of your life. So you give it up, and then a new day can start. You can have a new beginning. You can start a new life in the moment. Right now, you're healthy, whole, happy, and you're protected by spiritual help around you. We all have guardian angels and spirit and angels around us all the time. We just aren't always aware of it. And you can look to that instead of the past. You live in the moment where you have all your needs met. So you live a new life in reality is what you're doing. You're giving up that darkness, and the light shines that this is what's real. You are loved. You are taken care of. You are safe. You went through that experience. See, I do past life regressions because when you give up the harms and hurts of your past, you don't have to have them and carry them around anymore. You actually cut the chain emotionally to what happened before, and you're free of it. Forgiveness is not for the person that hurt you, it's for you. You don't have to stay connected to that anymore. You can move on in a happy life. And so to forgive every person, place, and thing, that's the ultimate. Because then you're not attached to anything still keeping you and dragging you into the dark. You know, I like to think of it as I was on an airplane ride to California to a writers' conference in Santa Barbara, and it was just raining cats and dogs at the Seattle airport. It was probably the most rainy day. We have rain up here all the time, but it was probably the worst rainy day I've ever seen. And there's an old saying, raining cats and dogs, and I looked out the window and I said, that's what's going on. I mean, it was puddles were deep on the airfield and with all the rain. And so when the plane proceeded up through the clouds, above the clouds were the sunshine. And that sun was shining forever and always was, even though it was raining on earth. And what I realized is God's always there. That love is always there shining for us. We grow in the sunlight of that spirit. And I don't have to stay down in the dark clouds.
That's right. You don't. Absolutely. You really, really don't. Is there anything from the book additionally that you want to share with us in anticipation of the book coming out? We're talking, of course, about Finding Reality Beyond Fear, which is your most recent book, which is actually headed to the publisher today. So congratulations on all the work on this book, and as of today, the 28th of November, it's heading to the publisher and should be ready for Christmas. So a big, big congratulations. I know it's been a labor of love for you. This particular book, before you share a little something from the book, what was your inspiration for this book, and what do you hope people get out of this book, what that they will be left with that new book?
Well, the inspiration was to share my story of how I came to Earth to show people they could get to the other side, and this is my story of doing it. So it starts out, that I was powerless and my life was in terrible disarray. My husband was trying to kill me. I was addicted to prescription drugs and alcohol, and one pill is 6 times the effect. So I had to get out of all of this craziness, and my mother being mentally ill, that was in the family also, and addiction, alcoholism. So to move out of that is my step-by-step approach of how I went daily basis, basically moving into a better life. And so the first part of the book shares my moving out of that life that I just described, and then the next part describes how I try to stay in balance today, and the third part shares how I healed my different illnesses, the mental illness, the alcoholism, the bipolar disorder, and I took just the basic illnesses to explain in the book, and how I handled that with spiritual love, and love heals everything. And then the last part of the book is telling what the truth is, and I go into great explanation about the light of God and how that's been kept from most people. And historically, it was called alchemy, And that's how they hid it from the churches, because if you said anything 2,000 years ago that didn't agree with the church at that time, that's what the Catholic Inquisitions were about. So you were killed if you said anything against the churches. And so they hid the truth in all kinds of ways. One was alchemy. And so I explain more and more about how to move into the light and what the light's about. And it's a higher vibration. We don't need to stay in low vibrations. And so it's takes you through my trip, basically, of going from A to Z, and that you can do it too. If I can get out of domestic violence and all the illnesses and addictions I've had and the relationship problems I've had, anybody can.
Right. I think the scriptwriters on Days of Our Lives would love your story, because it sounds like maybe a year's worth of material for them, what you've experienced. It's absolutely unbelievable. And, you know, the positive thing is here you are today. You've come out ahead. You've come out rebooted, refreshed, renewed, rejuvenated, a positive aspect and outlook on life, and I think that's really terrific. Anything quick from the book that you wanted to additionally share with us, Marilyn?
Well, in the epilogue, I wrote, my life has amazed me. I did not know I was living in reality, was not living in reality, either in my growing up or in my teaching years. It took a terrifying experience, so profound, to get my attention that I desperately prayed for help because I wanted to live. My life began a new path in faith rather than survival. And little did I know this new focus would lead me to find reality deep inside and unconditional love in myself and in the universal energy of love.
That's beautiful.
So it's really it's a book for helping people take the journey, the spiritual journey that a lot of people are searching for today. There's a lot of organizations and more people out there today sharing the message that love is all there is, and that we are part of that, and there's only one consciousness, and we're all together in it. And every time somebody raises their consciousness a little higher, it benefits us all. So we're helping each other.
Mm-hmm. What would you say you're most proud of everything that you've accomplished thus far?
Oh, that's a toughie.
This is probably a long list. Yeah.
I'm still alive. I'm 78 years old, and I'm still alive and kicking. You know, I'm really surprised as how much I've accomplished, because I didn't expect it to turn out like it did, that I would be so prolific in art or so prolific in writing or speaking, teaching, counseling. The various activities I do are on my website, angelicasgifts.com. And my new coming book, For Finding Reality Beyond Fear, is going to be on Amazon.com with my other books shortly, 2 weeks hopefully from now. And so I've accomplished more than I even expected. It amazes me, actually. And I don't know that I'm still around and that I can help others out of their demise. I guess the most proud thing is that I've come through it, and it was okay, and I'm really better off for it. All these things had to happen. I wasn't always thrilled about it, I'll tell you. Some of them were pretty desperate. But we are always loved and protected, and our spirit lives forever. And when I found that out, that I was never going to really die, when I was right after 9/11, I got really shook up and scared, and my boyfriend says, "Well, you'll just come back again as another, a person, so you're not going to die." And all of a sudden, it was like, "Gee, there's nothing that's really going to stop me. I will be eternal in God's love, and there isn't anything that will stop me. I can do it."
The only thing stopping us is time. We're out of time. But everything else, you've got a wonderful life ahead, and you've done so many fantastic things, and we wish you continued success. It was a real pleasure having you with us on CUTV News Radio thus far. Hope we chat some more. Hope we delve deeper. Congratulations again on the new book. Again, people can go to angelicasgifts.com for more information, as well as the books available on Amazon. Thank you, Marilyn Redmond of Angelica's Gifts. It was a real pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed the series with us as much as I did.
I've had a great time, and thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, and looking forward to chatting with you real soon and exploring more. Thank you, Marilyn Redmond. And thank you for joining us. This is Jim Masters, CU TV News Radio. We hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great day.